Okay everyone, welcome back to another Retro Station video. In this video we have an original Xbox, which I believe is probably the second one that I have on this channel. And as you can see from the label that's been left here by the previous owner, it says that the disc tray is stuck. Now that's all I'm going to be focused on in this video. I know there's other things that we should do for this original Xbox, such as the capacitors and replacing them. But the main thing I want to focus on here is getting this disc tray open, working, and reliably working. So if I just flip to the front and have a little zoom in here, totally understandable to some degree, and it might not come up that clear on camera. In fact, yeah, I can think you can see it there above the lettering for Xbox, like along here and at the side. It's clear that yes, the disc tray is stuck, but somebody's used a knife or something to pry open the disc tray, and you can see it's like marked and dented the shell, which is really frustrating. But again, I could totally see why someone would feel the need to do that if the disc tray is stuck and they have a game in there, or they obviously want to put another game in, or for whatever reason. So let's get this opened up. I have purchased from Amazon a bunch of, well, different sized disc drive pulleys, belts, and some what's this, like white grease. I think that's the better term for it. It's basically this really good grease for disc drives and stuff. So we'll apply. I'm assuming here that the issue is either the pulley is slipping, or the grease on the original drive is dried up, which could then make it harder to eject the disc drive, which then makes the belt slip. But that's me assuming a lot. Obviously, it's best that we just crack it open and have a look for ourselves. But this would be the first original Xbox that I take apart to repair the disc drive not ejecting. I just realised we probably should have powered it on and tested it. So I'm going to go ahead and, obviously the screws coming out doesn't really matter too much, but let's just test it. I'm going to put a power cable in and just see if it does eject and how much wiggling or how much assistance it needs. So turns on, I get orange flashing, which I think will be the AV cable. And then if you press the power button, nothing happens. I can hear it inside, like trying. If we get a plastic spudger, where did that one go? And maybe give it a helping hand here. Yeah, it isn't wanting to budge. Now I'm sure there's a actual release, like pinhole for the drive right at the front here. Let's see if this does anything. This is like a SIM card remover. I don't think that reaches far enough, to be honest, in there before it actually presses anything. So to be honest, it's clearly not opening. We'll turn it off. There we go. And just get it taken apart, because like I said, it's going to be easier to fix it from the inside, and we'll have to fix something anyway. How are you not opening? We've got... Oh wait, is there one more? Oh, there's one more under there as well. How could I have forgotten? So that's the final one to come out, and it also is where the manufacturer date is on the sticker. And the manufacturer date on this one is 2003-09-15. So that is I think a revision 1.4 motherboard. And then that just comes off so much easier. Yeah, I've been an idiot. Okay, dusty as hell. It kind of will be for a 23-year-old console. In fact, oh my, I'm surprised it's turned on at all. That is disgusting inside there. In that side bit, I don't know what that was. But this metal like kind of like cage that it sits in, you can see it's like rusted up a little bit on there. So yeah, that's horrible. Right, there's loads of like, I think someone's maybe sprayed this with like a WD-40 or a degreasing agent or something, because there's lots of residue on the shell of it inside. But I'm going to go ahead and plug the power back in and see if we can encourage the disk drive to open from this. Yeah, it's still stuck. Okay, let's turn that off and get rid of I only really want to take the disk drive out. The hard drive and the rest of it can stay in for now. I will do a clean on this. I want to get the disk drive out so we can fix that first and foremost. So, right, and finally get the disk drive out. It's way too much effort, but have a look at the condition of this board down here. I've never seen so much dust. In fact, I think I have a worse one to show you, but that's another video. It's definitely not coming across as bad on the video as I first saw, but yeah, it's really dusty. Right, there's some residue left on this. I don't know what it's from. So I don't know if they've tried to spray some kind of like WD-40 or something into the disk drive to encourage it to open more freely, but it's kind of coated the top side of everything. Right, what do we have? So we've got it's a Samsung drive. I know, like I said, it's a 1.4 revision motherboard. Samsung DVD drive. I'd probably need to look into the like wiki, look at stuff online to see what that actually means in terms of the disk drive itself, because I think some of them have different problems that they come with. But let's go ahead and try and get the manual release of this. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so straight down in there was a thing to press, and I'm sure that just releases the drive. There we go, it does. No disc, unfortunately. That would have been nice to have, but it does. It feels kind of smooth. There's no, actually, saying that. Yeah, it doesn't feel great, but let's get this apart and we can clean it up inside. So I don't really fancy removing, you can see there, it's just tape, I think, holding in that ribbon cable. There doesn't seem to be like a bail to release or anything to get that ribbon cable out, so I don't want really to be undoing those ribbon cables. And that is disgusting. That's actually horrendous. Right, let's clean it up a bit more. Don't think the dirt's going to be the problem at all. I think it's physically being stuck on something. Right, so clearly, sorry, disk drive is open. It just moved the disk drive there on its own. I don't want it to try again and get caught, but it's trying to read the disk. Obviously there's no disk installed, so I'll have an issue with that. If I press the eject button, it has difficulty Okay, press it again. It can't even take the disk drive back in. If I put it halfway, it can eject it, but it can't take it back in. I have to give it a bit of a help. When it comes back out, give it help. Okay. Interesting. So if I force it shut, it just opens back up. It's not going 100% in and clicking all the way where it should be. Yeah, it comes straight back out. Doesn't like it. Okay. Let's turn it off. Just connect power. Okay, so apologies for the cut there. My camera overheated and turned itself off, and I didn't realise for a good like 5 minutes. But basically, I've been looking at how the mechanism works on this, on how when the drive shuts, there's a plastic. What the hell is that? Oh, there's a plastic little bit that sticks out. Words fail me right now, which is right here. This thing that sticks out, when the drive shuts, it goes into this groove here. And when that goes into that groove, it gets forced along like this. So it gets kind of forced part way by the disk drive shutting, and then I think the motor then continues it along this way, I think. But it's definitely where it should go. And the problem is, when it's coming to a shut, it kind of just stops here. The disk drive can't go back any further. Sorry, it's right up against the edge. It can't go any further. But this isn't being the laser assembly isn't being raised up. So right now it's there. That's where it should be, and that is done with, I think, assistance from the motor, and it moves that plastic notch in along that groove. So I've messed about with it for long enough. I think the easiest fix, or the first go-to fix, is always the pulley here. So this pulley that goes from the motor to a gear, or a larger pulley that then drives the gears, over time in any DVD drive, CD drive, will start to fail. Whether that's because they get gunked up with dirt, or they lose their elasticity, which means they don't have a firm enough grip on the pulley itself, so it slips. Whatever that may be, we need to replace it. I think that's our first thing we should do to test to see if the disk drive opens on its own or not. It's a very simple fix. Like I said, I bought this pack from Amazon. It was like £3 or £4 for varying sizes, multiple of each size. And I'm hoping actually that they are the correct size. I'll get 2 out of the pack and then take the original one out and compare and see which one closely matches it. So am I fully zoomed in here? I think I am. So I just need to get like a pair of tweezers or something just to grab the pulley itself off. So just take it off there, and it should just release itself. And there's loads of like residue left on this. Again, I wonder whether someone's like sprayed something in to try and lubricate the drive somehow, and it's got onto the pulley. But anyway, I've removed it. I think it's worth just replacing it anyway because of the age aspect. But if we compare these side by side, yeah, that one's bigger than the original anyway, so that's too big. And that one seems significantly smaller, but I'm guessing that will cause a lot more grip when it's around the pulleys. So, and it's also a lot thinner. So I don't see this lasting forever. Well, I don't see this lasting as long as that one did, but at least with a tighter belt, it might give us an indication as to whether there's something else is the problem with this. So let's just go ahead and try this. So there it is on. Is that correct? That's correct. Okay, so I'll shut it back up. It still doesn't pop it back up into place, but I think the power from the Xbox itself drives the motor and then forces it into that little notch area, just that bit further and along the side, along horizontally, so that it then fully locks it in place, and then also drives that laser assembly up. So let's get it plugged back in. Let's see if we can get it on camera a bit better. There we go, that should be fine. Power. Let's just go ahead and turn it on. Okay. So it's gone up into position. I think the laser's searching for a disc. Obviously there's not one in, so fingers crossed here. Let me just make sure I'm pressing it correctly. Yeah, the top one. So does it open up the disk drive? Oops. Oh, it does as well. Stays out, and then this is all this grease on the bloody plastic from whoever had it before, I think. Close it. Oh, it works perfectly. That was literally it. What I am going to do, turn it off. What I am going to do is just put a little bit more grease, because one, I bought it off Amazon, I want to use it, and two, it may just increase or decrease the resistance that the drive has when it's been driven out. So when this drive slides out, it's on those gears. I think we just need to put a tiny bit of grease on just to increase or decrease the friction, and hopefully allow it to last a little bit longer. Ideally, I think I'll use like a lollipop stick. I'll just take a little bit of it. Ideally, I'd use a toothpick. That would be better. But I'm just going to apply it just along here, because what will happen is you can put it on here in a couple of places. So I've just put it, zoom in a bit there. I've just put a bit on that tray where the drive will slide down. It doesn't need to be spread out all the way along it, because over time I think the drive itself will start to spread it anyway, so it doesn't matter too much. Just put that there. Probably want a little bit around that spindle, so the metal spindle there for when the laser goes along. It's worth just adding a bit of grease to that. Again, as it goes back and forth, it'll spread that out. Ideally, I want to get a little bit onto the cogs, but I don't think I can get to that properly. The best way I could probably do that is on this, there's teeth here that go along the drive. So just zoom this in here. There we go. So you see those teeth? Drop it on there. Eventually, again, it will spread over time along that and should just help to reduce the friction. So I think that's probably good enough. Let's put the lid back on for this. Hopefully this lasts a while, because I brought a big tool of it. And then just slide that back and forth. Depress that a little bit. That does feel a lot better. But right, so hopefully that's it. The disk drive has its issues sorted. I'm going to put the case back on for this disk drive and get the screws back in, and then we can go ahead and put it all back together and assemble it back together, and that way when it's back in the shell we can properly assess whether that's done enough. Whether that's done enough to keep it working, and then from there, off camera, I'll give this a clean down, because that was basically the purpose of this video, was to fix the disk drive. And from the quick demonstration then, I think it is fixed. So let's go ahead and put it all back together. We've got it all back together, minus a few screws. Plug it in, turn it on. it's interesting noises. Disk drive does get stuck actually. It just needs a wiggle. Let's try close that. Why does it need a bit of a press? That's really interesting. Okay, so it's been a day or two because I've just had to take a bit of time away from this project, but I've done some research and checked on really old forum posts, Reddit, videos. I've had a look all over to see what I could see in terms of why this still has a sticking point. The ultimate kind of reason is age, and I think that's pretty obvious from many standpoints that people have on this type of thing. But ultimately this is made up of a pulley and gears, a motor and plastic. Dirt and grime has a major impact on how smooth something can freely move, and obviously then that has an impact on the motor, which in turn over time will start to slow down and weaken, coupled with the fact that you've got dirt and grime making it a more resistive motion. And I did see some theories that said about the magnet here that holds the disc kind of in place against the plastic circular piece there. Obviously they clamp together and that keeps the disc firmly in place. Some people did say that this magnet here, this one, is stronger holding the disc, and I've just put some bits of tape on there to try and put a bit more distance and therefore not as strong a connection to this plastic bit with a bit of metal in the middle. People said that that magnet can be too strong to overcome the weakened or now weakened motor or belt. I think that's a combination of factors. You can see here I've got 3 little bits of tape stuck on. It's still, in fact, let's put it together. I think the last thing we saw was it not working. It will work absolutely fine like this. So if I take it as is, like this right now, let me zoom out a wee bit. Up there. If I go ahead and plug this in and turn on the console and then press the eject button, obviously moves out, moves back in, it works fine. If I now just put this back together, so we put this bottom case on this way, like so, and then put the top on. Again, this is the part that has the bit of the magnet in it, or the, sorry, piece of metal that the magnet attaches to when the disc goes in. Let's get it properly put back together if I can. There we go. Again, that's just held back together with, like, it's not falling off, it's not falling out, but it's not got screws in. So it's not tight, but it's probably close enough to what it would be like when it's back in the console. So again, plugged in, turn it on. If I press eject, it gets stuck. If I press eject again, still stuck. If I press eject and give it a tap around here, let's bring this closer in, it opens. Now, I'm not saying exactly 100%, that's just jiggling that magnet enough to make it lose connection, so to speak, but disconnect those two magnets just enough that the belt and the motor can overcome it. But ultimately, there is nothing else in this setup. Like this plastic, sorry, this metal shell does not touch the disc tray at all. There's no way, oops, there's no way that disc tray, both sides, can come together and clamp together and restrict the motion of this disc tray moving in and out. So if I just press through on that, Okay, my point being, you can't, the metal tray isn't going to be touching any aspect of this. It's not going to be pinching it from top down. To me, that has to be this magnet part, and that's even with those little extra little strips on trying to distance the magnet and maybe weaken the connection. That's something I've read online. So what I think the issue is, and it's very difficult to fix unless you, well, it's not difficult to fix, it's just replacing the motor. That motor to me is weak. I've greased this up, I've removed the disc tray, so if I pull the disc tray out, push it in a bit more, I accidentally kind of snapped a little tab off, which meant the disc tray can just slide in and out, but that's fine. The disc drive itself isn't going to launch the disc tray off. Yeah, so I've taken it apart. I've greased the teeth along here. I've greased this little kind of like channel where the plastic notch here, so this this plastic notch there, that's responsible for following that groove, and as it follows that groove, it pushes this plastic thing back and forth. So as it goes in, it moves this over, which then raises up the laser assembly, and as it ejects, the first thing it does is drop down the laser assembly, and then the tray can slide out. So I've got grease on the little plastic nubbin there that goes into the groove. I've got grease in the groove, so it's nice and smooth. It's not getting stuck on the plastic. I've greased the channels. You can see, in fact, we could spread this one out a bit more now I've got access to it, but down all the channels, there is extra grease to prevent all of that from sticking. So I did that a wee bit off camera. I basically got grease everywhere there could be friction. And wherever there was friction, that little grease has, as it's moved back and forward, spread it along. So it's got a decent amount of grease in there. There's still a bit of dirt in areas that just don't move or don't have an impact on any moving parts. So the final thing then really that we can do is, if we look at where the motor is, it has a pulley. I've already replaced the pulley, which allows it to eject better. But I still think that pulley isn't strong enough, despite it being, in fact, let's get the original. So let's see if I've got space on my screen here. I'll zoom out a tiny bit. So there's the original. Let's move this all over. And here is a replacement. The replacement, to me, is slightly smaller diameter, so it should add to the grip strength of the pulley. I still don't think it's enough, and the thickness of this old pulley is probably double the thickness of the new one. So I'm going to put 2 of these pulleys on, so that, I don't know, in an attempt to double up, so to speak, on the kind of like resistance. Correct me if that's physically wrong. You know, physics won't allow that, or it's not how it works mathematically, but I think if I put an extra pulley on, that has to sit slightly on, sorry, I did that off camera again. All I've done is just put a second pulley there. So you can see there is the 2. If I put a second one on, it sits slightly on the outside of the original because there's not enough room, I imagine, for both of them to sit. That should increase the tension and the force applied to the pulley. I'm not a physicist, so if some of those things I said don't make sense, then feel free to correct me. But I'm going to plug this back in. If the tray's out, that means it's all the way over to the side. I'm going to put it back in, wiggle it back on. There we go. So it shuts. It still doesn't fully bring up that plastic and bring up the laser assembly. That's where the motor then continues to drive that white, continues to drive this white bit of plastic down here, which then fully puts the laser assembly up. So now it sits properly. That's how it should sit. Right, let's get this put back together. I'm hoping this is the last I have to do with this. If this still doesn't work, this video probably won't see light of day, because it's not a fix. Even though everything I did can be a fix for other people, it just depends on the severity of how weak your motor is. Oh, wrong way. And how much extra grease is needed. Right. I am going to test this without putting the screws in, because I guarantee if I put screws in, I will curse it and it just won't work. So plug back in, turned on. I'm going to rest it there, so I'm not even going to touch it to influence whether the magnet drops, but opens up. There was a slight hesitant at the beginning. I don't know if that's standard, but opened first time, opens the second time, and opens the third time. So finally, I think we have a working disc drive with a very easy fix that took far too long. I did read some comments that saying leaving a disc in means there is further separation from those two magnets, which kind of makes sense, which means it's then weaker. The connection between the two magnets is weaker, which means it's easier for the disc tray to eject. So I'll try a fourth time. I'll leave it in a couple seconds. Try again. Yeah, and it opens up. So I think ultimately it boils down to taking the disc drive apart, replacing the belt either with an exact diameter replacement in terms of the thickness and the circumference of the pulley itself. I didn't find an exact replacement. I just purchased a multiple pack of different sizes, because you never know, in the future I might replace other drive belts and they might need a bigger one, a smaller one, or whatever. So I just purchased a pack of them. It's about £3 or £4 off Amazon. No harm in buying that. And greased it up a bit, cleaned it out, and that pretty much has, I hope, fixed the disc drive for at least the next 5 to 10 years of its lifetime. If it lives that long, great. If it doesn't, then it's a shame. But I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it was at least straightforward enough to follow. I'll have to see what it comes out like in editing. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.